Okay. All right, we're recording now. All right, so first, Leanne, I'd like to introduce myself to you. I'm Tiffany Cresswell-Yeager. I'm a faculty member at Gwynedd Mercy. I teach in their doctoral program in higher ed leadership, but I began my career in higher ed in 1998 as the assistant director of annual giving at the foundation at Kutztown. And Matt at the time was director of sports information and marketing and development. And I think Kutztown always likes to add to your title for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I was director of athletic advancement. So I was basically the external relations person for athletics back in those days, and had, my hair was in place and all that stuff. I'm much younger.
Yeah, well, I was going to say both of us. So anyway, I reached out because I had actually taught at Kutztown for a year after I transitioned from administration to faculty. And I just am really impressed with the work that Kutztown does. The campus is amazing and growing and beautiful. And I think that I'm on a lot of the mailing lists and I receive a lot of the materials. And as a former communications grad, I just am always impressed with the work that you're all doing. So thank you for being here today. Glynis, would you introduce yourself?
Happy to do so. I'm Glynis Gaines. I'm the Dean of Health Professions at McLennan Community College in Waco, Texas.
Wow. Okay. Nice
Thank you. Janelle, are you able to unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes. Janelle LaRue. Sorry, I'm driving.
No, you're okay.
LaRue. I work with the Gear Up program with the School District of Philadelphia, and I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. And we have a phone number. Are you able to unmute and tell us who you are? If not, that's okay. All right, we'll get started. Okay, so Matt, would you like to introduce Leanne, or Leanne introduce yourself and Matt introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, Leanne is our marketing expert, and I know many of the questions you guys have are directly related to marketing. So my name's Matt Santos. I'm Vice President for University Relations and Athletics at Kutztown University. I'm in my 29th year at KU. I started in athletics as the sports information director, moved into the external relations for athletics, did that for 6 years. And then in 2006, I moved over to public relations. I was the media relations director for a year, director of university relations for 10 years, and moved into the vice president's role in 2017. So in my current role, I oversee in university relations, marketing, communications, the website, the university operators. We have the Performing Artists Series, the Pennsylvania German Cultural Heritage Center. And then on the athletics side, I have intercollegiate athletics, recreation, sports medicine. I also have government and community relations. We handle all the crisis communications and executive communications for the university. So it's pretty broad. It's a unique job in a lot of ways. The combination is a bit different than you might see athletics and student affairs and a lot of places. For me, it's a great mix of my athletic background along with my PR background. And Leanne, we've had a director of marketing since 2013. Leanne is our third director of marketing. We hired her back in March. And Leanne, I'll let you introduce yourself rather than stealing your thunder.
Sure. I'm Leanne Rekla. Like Matt said, I'm the director of marketing. I've been with the university for 8 or 9 months now. I started in March. Before that, I worked as the marketing specialist at Lehigh Carbon Community College. So I've got a few years of higher ed experience under my belt. I started my career in newspapers and spent some time there. So got lots of experience in the digital publishing realm. Did a short stint as the communications manager at a software development firm, and then moved to LTRIC. So I've got a pretty varied background. But it's nice to meet all of you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you both. And so interestingly, I felt like as Matt was talking about all of his responsibilities, I kept panicking and thinking how 2020 must have been a real challenge for you. And Leanne, you said you started in March, which means that you started right as the quarantine was happening. So there's no manual for that. There's no way to predict. If somebody would have asked me any of this in 2019, I would never have been able to say. And I thought I knew a lot about higher ed and a lot about how things worked. And this has been completely new in terms of how we're managing. So the course that the students are in right now is an enrollment management course. And we're looking at how marketing integrates with enrollment management and how important the brand or the storytelling is to the enrollment side. So I'm just going to get started into our questions. And so I'm going to ask this question: what's the most rewarding part of your work? And specific to marketing, but also thinking about how admissions has fit into that process as well. And Leanne, I'll ask you to start.
Sure. To me, the most rewarding part of my work is the fact that I get to do marketing in higher education. I could be working in marketing and sales in electronics or candy or something that is completely useless to people, but higher education can truly change lives. And the fact that I get to use my background to help promote a university like Kutztown is really the most rewarding part.
Awesome. Thank you. Matt, anything you'd like to add to that? What do you love about your job?
Well, after 29 years, Tiffany, I think, I would echo what Leanne said. I have my two younger boys are students here. So I can really relate to this generation of students and love being, a part of helping them shape their future. But yeah. I think, at my point, when you and I were working together, I had one direct report. Mm-hmm. Now it's up to 10 and a division of 75. So I do, one of my main, I think, things that push me every day, my motivational part of my job is helping my direct reports, the people who are dedicated to their job. I think we have a great staff, and it's one of the reasons I persevere through some of the craziness that's going on at this point. Still too young to retire, but it's the work that they're doing that being in management, something I never wanted to do, is now one of the rewarding parts for me. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think in higher ed, 29 years is now a testament, right? It doesn't feel like people are staying nearly as long as maybe when we started in higher ed, it was much more normal. So that's a testament to the university and to your team. Thank you. So on the other side of that, and obviously 2020 has provided you with many answers to this question. What's the most challenging part right now? What are you dealing with that is more challenging?
I mean, COVID is such a challenge on so many levels. And I think it's because it has changed everybody's behavior. Everybody is struggling to make things work and things that weren't previously struggles, right? So we, as an office, we have some people who are working remotely for various reasons. So we've had to adapt. And as you're aware, higher ed isn't really a work from home kind of industry. So we've all had to adapt to that. And I think we've done a pretty good job of it, but there was some growing pains for sure. In addition to that, our students and prospective students are facing challenges that nobody would have ever anticipated. So we have the challenge of figuring out ways to reach them, new ways that we wouldn't have thought of before. So we've been developing more digital content than we ever had before, more video content than we ever have before, figuring out the best ways to reach students where they are, which isn't necessarily in person in their high schools anymore.
Right. It's wild, it really is. I did admissions at Penn State after I left Kutztown, and that's what we did, the college fairs, the high school visits, and that's not happening. I saw Penn State Lehigh Valley is going to do a drive-in admissions event, which I thought they're going to have the big screen and show a video. And I thought, 2020 really is a different time. Matt, anything you want to add to that related to the challenges? Because your experience is so broad, I'm sure you're seeing things from a very global perspective in terms of the university life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, initially it was, it was treated as a crisis and a very different crisis. And, maybe it would last a couple weeks, maybe it would last a couple months. The hardest thing is simply, now I can get into how things are so different this semester. We had over 300 cases of COVID, and the battle we had just to, stay open, and the fallout that went along with that. But I think this is probably the case for us, is probably the same with the whole country and the whole world right now, is when is the end? And it's when you're running a marathon, you can pace yourself to get to that because you're going 26 miles. We just don't know how to pace ourselves through this, and it is exhausting. It is ultimately exhausting. I've seen more long timers retire in the past just month than I have in years. So I think it's really taken a toll on people mentally in a lot of ways, and not just employees but students as well.
Yeah, that's true. Now, Kutztown's enrollment was stable or up a bit this year. Is that correct? I think I had read something that Dwayne Hilton had said that enrollment was not down.
It was overall down a little bit. We're at about 7892.
Okay.
Which is down a little bit. We were up in new freshmen. Our retention was better. So we're much steadier than a lot of our counterparts this year. Now, as we look to next year, there's some challenges because of the admissions game. But in the last, we peaked at 10,700 students in 2010. So we're at 7892.
Mm-hmm.
We were at 7,800 when I started in 92. So we're kind of back to where we started, but we did have this peak. We went back down, and that was directly connected with demographics back in 2010, as it is now. So I think it looks steady through 2025, and then I think higher ed in general is going to have some challenges long term beyond that.
Yeah. And so does your team create, and Leanne, do you do the marketing for admissions? Do you create their campaigns and their pieces?
Some. So they do some of the stuff themselves. Anything creative comes out of our office. So any print publications, postcards, that kind of thing, we develop for them. They do all of their email and SMS marketing campaigns themselves.
Okay. And so have you seen, as Matt was talking about, the sort of demographic shift in Pennsylvania, high school graduates are plateauing, and we know there's a drop-off point. And it's funny, I can remember when the point was 2011 that we were worried about, and then 2021, and here, now we're talking 2025, and it seems to be getting more and more competitive, more and more difficult. Can you speak to the demographics that Kutztown is targeting in terms of the marketing? Who are you trying to reach?
Sure. So our bread and butter is definitely the students within our region. So Berks County, Lehigh Valley, Schuylkill County, down into Montgomery a little bit. So that's definitely our bread and butter, is this sort of Eastern Pennsylvania, slightly into central Pennsylvania region, a little bit into New Jersey as well. And that's where we focus most of our efforts geographically, because we just have name recognition there, and it's where our students are coming from organically. So we find paid advertising efforts we have the biggest effect here, really here in our area. As far as demographically, Kutztown is situated right in between Reading and Allentown, which are very diverse cities. So we see diversity and welcome diversity increasing among our student body, but of course our marketing all needs to shift to match all of that. So that's something that we're very mindful of too.
Yeah, great points. So last week we talked a little bit in our class about institutional research and data collection and how important it is in marketing communications on a college campus. Can you talk a little bit about the type of data you collect, or what data you look at in order to determine how you create a campaign or the types of messaging you send?
Sure. So the data person in our admissions office is one of my best friends. I've had calls with him one-on-one where we just talk about CRM data. Some of the biggest things that I'm interested in are what our top feeder high schools are. And I also like to look at things year over year. So if we see a county where applications are suddenly up in that county, that is a good indicator to me that, well, we might want to lean into that and put a little more effort into that area, maybe have a counselor visit up there a little more often than usual. Of course, COVID changes everything, but under normal circumstances. If we see one of our strong counties suddenly drop in applications, that's an indicator to me they may need a little reminder that we're here. So I keep tabs on where our applications are coming from organically, because that is very informative to where paid efforts would be most effective. I also keep tabs on institutional research data around our most popular programs and our unique programs for similar reasons. Popular programs tend to perform even better if there's a little bit of a paid boost behind them, and unique programs are always something for us to tout because it does differentiate us from some of our sister institutions. In addition to that, we've got all of our marketing data from our digital campaigns. So we keep tabs on where our ads are performing the best. I just had a call with our agency yesterday, and they said our ads are performing incredibly well in 3 specific counties in New Jersey. You know, kind of that, those tidbits of data are the sort of thing that I can share with admissions. And maybe it's worth a counselor traveling over there more often than they normally would. So we keep tabs on quite a bit of data because it points us in successful directions.
Great, thank you. That's it, and it's amazing how much information really is at your fingertips and how it can inform decision making. You know, I felt like when Matt, when I began in the foundation, we were really flying blindly in terms of data collection, and I learned, it's funny, because Gwyneth actually just moved to a Razor's Edge campus last year, and I was able to say to me, I know that. I was part of the transition to Windows Razor's Edge. And when we had that reporting ability, we could know so much about who had given in the last 5 years and how much they had given and how we can push them to give more. And so it really is a powerful tool, the data collection and information. Matt, anything you want to add to that? And anything you use data to determine in terms of crisis communication? I'm sure that there were meetings on meetings on meetings when the case counts were climbing earlier this year.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It was we depended a lot on the local, you know, and regional health agencies and the data that was associated with the COVID in general. But I think I use IR, the Institutional Research Office, quite a bit when I'm writing news releases. If it was the freeze enrollment release, what numbers can we pull out that we can really highlight this year? We'll use it a lot for making this. We just added our 22nd sport in athletics, women's acrobatics, and tumbling. So we'll use it for gathering data on campus, for student surveys, whatever we need it for to be able to kind of guide our decisions. So yeah, we use it pretty regularly.
Awesome, thank you.
So.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about branding. And can you talk about where the brand is created? Kutztown had gone through a rebranding process. I think either right before I was there in 2015 or 2016, there was some new imaging and messaging. So can you talk a little bit about how the brand was developed and Leanne, what you're using related to that brand now? How would you describe it to someone outside of this region?
Sure. So yeah, the rebrand happened in 2015, 2016. It was before I was here, so I wasn't part of the process, but I know that they did a lot of market research. They talked to a lot of people external to the campus and also within the campus to develop messaging, imagery that all fits along with the KU student, really was the goal and is what they accomplished. So when I describe the KU student to somebody, it's a little bit of a dichotomy, but that's what makes it interesting, I think. So there's this sense from our students of determination and resilience and grit. But then there's also, everybody talks about being a part of the KU community, and that You know, it's from the time that they visit to their time here as a student to their time as alums, they always feel a part of the Golden Bear community. So there's this sense of personal accomplishment, but then also community accomplishment. And it's sometimes a little bit of a challenge in our messaging to balance those two, but I think it's important to celebrate both.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal. I just was really impressed with the work that was done, and I continue to get development pieces. I think some of the campaigns related to it's like a 24-hour campaign, and it's based on number of minutes and just really creative things. Right now, are there social media campaigns or how are you using social media in your marketing strategy?
Right. So in two different ways, we have paid and unpaid. Paid is social media using Facebook and Instagram to reach our target student audience. And those are, you know, images from mostly last year that we're using to share some unique academic experiences that we have on campus. Then we also have unpaid social media, which is a totally different animal, of course. We use Instagram as really our primary platform to reach prospective and current students. Then we use Facebook to communicate with alums and parents. We have Twitter as well that we use for really a news platform more than anything else, but we like to share some happenings from campus on there as well and some great imagery. We've been using YouTube more and more too. We have all these great videos that we've been developing. So we're doing lots of work on our YouTube channel to make sure that we're reaching students through these fantastic videos where we're featuring students and their accomplishments. The primary way that we're using social media right now is twofold. First, we want to show the successes that we're having still offering an in-person campus experience, because I think that's somewhat unique to us and it's something that I think should be celebrated. So the in-person campus events that we're having, we're covering like crazy and trying to share galleries, video, whatever we can do. The other thing that we're doing is using social media to tell our students stories, because we want to maintain that sense of community as much as possible. And storytelling is a fantastic way to do that. We know from some small focus groups we've done that students love hearing about other students' successes. So we've put up lots of student profiles, interesting images, students who we feature in imagery on the homepage or even on our billboards. We're doing profiles of them because we want people to know who these students are and be able to identify with them.
Awesome. It's great work and rewarding work. I am always inspired when I talk to people who are doing this kind of work, because I really appreciated your quote when you said you could be marketing candy or something else, but to market higher education and the college experience is really powerful. So I appreciate your conversation with us. We are almost out of time, but I wanted to ask two more questions. So you spoke a little bit about your conversations with admissions and having a close friend in that office. What's the marketing's relationship with admissions? How does that work? And is there any connection to retention? And I guess maybe my question starts with, is retention part of the admissions process, part of the student affairs process at KU? Would you say that happens more in student services? And do you have any role with marketing in terms of retention? So let's start with admissions. What's the relationship with marketing and admissions at KU?
Okay. I've worked very hard to build a relationship with the admissions office. The admissions director and I talk probably daily at this point. And I think the two of us feel very, very strongly that the stronger our collaboration is, the better it is for the university as a whole. Because she and her staff are the ones who have the strongest connection to students and the ones who truly get to actually talk to them one-on-one. And then we can provide the support around what's the strongest messaging, what's the strongest creative, how can we get our story in front of students. So we work, if I consider other offices and department on campus as my clients, admissions is my primary client. Mm-hmm. As far as retention goes, we haven't had too much responsibility there. Now we do provide some video or photo support to other offices on campus, so we can help there. We've helped with, I would actually say that my publications manager helps more in that case, because anybody needs anything designed on campus, including all of our retention offices, it is her who's providing that support. So between photo, video, and print support, we do help their efforts, but retention is truly spearheaded through student services.
Great, thank you. And then my final question, I will allow the students if they have any pressing questions that they want to ask. But the last one would be your connection through marketing and communications to strategic planning. Are you involved in that process at the university? Is that something that is an active, dynamic process? And either Matt or Leanne, either of you can share your roles or involvement.
Well, that's an interesting question, Tiffany. I would say not as much as we would like to be. Strategic planning is kind of driven by the middle state. We're accredited by middle states. And a lot of the strategic planning is driven by the needs of middle states. So there's usually there's a strategic planning resource committee, which actually meets tomorrow, which kind of governs that plan, and we fill in the pieces as needed for that, and we tie our annual goals. Like Leanne will have annual goals for marketing, communications, we'll tie them into the overall strategic plan. We also go on, we just did an internal review. We do that every 5 years. We'll bring in someone from the outside to look at how we're doing to help us set our goals for the next 5 years. I think, you know, a lot of times in higher ed, there things are done in kind of different ways, and it's more of a unique process, I guess, in how it's pulled together at different schools. And so it's not really centralized for us, but we kind of play a part in the overall planning.
Yeah, I think it's actually very unique. Each school or each university has a different process and policy. And we talked to an institutional researcher last week as part of this class, and she talked about the schools who create the plan and put it on a shelf, and how that can happen because people don't know how to sort of integrate or use it. So that's why I wanted to know what KU's grant plan was. But Glynis, I just want to open it up if you had any questions you wanted to ask in our final minute.
I don't have a specific question. I think you've answered everything I could think of. I mean, it seems you're very collaborative, and it's very exciting. I'm writing down ideas here because I've really been thinking about brand this week, because I love where I work. I love what we do. I went to school here. It's like, I don't really know what our brand is. So all of this has really got my juices flowing and got me excited about what we're doing here. So I really appreciate what you're saying. And Leanne, if you want to market candy, I am all in on candy. And some days that would be totally fine, you know?
Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you and your team, and please extend my thanks to Tammy, who coordinated this. You know, I sent an email to the general line thinking maybe I could get a moment of your time, because again, I am very impressed with the work you're doing, and I know it's challenging. But Leanne, I'm excited for you as you begin this job, because I think Matt is probably one of the greatest people to work with. And I think that's really, really important, because your challenges are great. It's not an easy time to be in higher ed. It's not an easy time to be in marketing, but with a powerful, positive team and great leadership, I think it's exciting. So you're going to do great things. And I love hearing what Kutztown is doing. And I live in Schuylkill County, so you're right in my backyard. And I pay a lot of attention to that because my time there was extremely positive in both the beginning and middle of my career. So thank you both. I'm going to stop recording.